Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India issues stern warning on terror at SCO, puts Pakistan on notice over state support. Pakistan's cross-border shelling in Afghanistan kills civilians, triggers humanitarian crisis. And Sindh erupts with Sindhu Desh demand, spotlight on Pakistan's deepening internal dissent. India has issued a strong and unambiguous warning on terrorism at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization defense ministers meet in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, putting Pakistan on notice over its continued support to terror networks. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh called for zero tolerance against state-sponsored terrorism, asserting that India will not hesitate to respond decisively. Here's the full report.
At a crucial regional security platform, India sharpened its stance against cross-border terrorism, sending a direct message to Pakistan even as its Defense Minister Khwaja Asif was present in the room. Addressing SCO members, Rajnath Singh underlined that terrorism today remains the biggest threat to global peace, especially when it is backed, funded and protected by states. He stressed that nations cannot afford selective approaches or political convenience when dealing with terror groups. Highlighting India's firm counter-terror posture, Singh referred to Operation Sindoor, India's targeted response to terror infrastructure, as a clear signal that safe havens will not longer be tolerated. He reiterated that cross-border terrorism directly challenges sovereignty and territorial integrity, and those responsible must face consequences.
कुछ ही दिन पहले 22 अप्रैल को हमने पहलगाम में हुए भीषण आतंकी हमले के पीड़ितों को श्रद्धांजलि दी है। उस घटना ने न केवल एक क्षेत्र बल्कि पूरी मानवता को झकझोर कर रख दिया था। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान हमने यह स्पष्ट कर दिया कि आतंकवाद के केंद्र अब सजा पाने से किसी प्रकार से बच नहीं सकते।
The reference to the Pahalgam attack once again brought global attention to Pakistan-backed terror networks operating against India. New Delhi has consistently maintained that these networks thrive under state protection despite repeated international calls for accountability. At the SCO platform, India made it clear that the credibility of global and regional organizations depends on their willingness to attack, not just issue statements. Taking a firm diplomatic line, Singh called out the culture of double standards in dealing with terrorism, warning that ignoring state-sponsored terror only emboldens perpetrators. He urged SCO members to dismantle terror ecosystems, eliminate safe havens, and ensure there is no distinction between good and bad terrorists.
क्रॉस बॉर्डर टेररिज्म को नजरअंदाज नहीं करना चाहिए, जो किसी भी देश की संप्रभुता पर सीधा आघात करता है। इस विषय में दोहरे मानदंडों के लिए कोई स्थान नहीं है और एससीओ को उन लोगों के खिलाफ उचित कदम उठाने से पीछे नहीं हटना चाहिए जो आतंकवाद को समर्थन, आश्रय या संरक्षण देते हैं।
India also reminded member states that terrorism has no religion or nationality, and any attempt to justify it under any pretext must be rejected outright. This strong messaging comes amid growing global concerns over Pakistan's continued links to terror groups and its failure to dismantle infrastructure targeting neighboring countries. India's position remains clear. Dialogue and diplomacy cannot coexist with terrorism. Beyond rhetoric, India is backing its stance with action, combining military precision, intelligence coordination, and diplomatic pressure to counter terror threats. From raising the issue at multilateral forums to executing operations like Sindoor, New Delhi is positioning itself as a decisive force against terrorism in South Asia and beyond.
Fresh tensions along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border have once again exposed Islamabad's destabilizing role in the region. Mortar and rocket attacks in Afghanistan's Kunar province have left civilians dead and dozens injured, even as Pakistan denies responsibility. The escalation threatens fragile peace efforts, while a growing humanitarian crisis reveals the deeper cost of Pakistan's aggressive cross-border posture.
Violence erupted on April 27 as Afghan authorities accused Pakistan of launching mortar and rocket strikes targeting civilian areas in Kunar's Asadabad. The attacks reportedly hit homes and the Syed Jamaluddin Afghani University, killing multiple civilians and injuring scores, including students, women, and children. Eyewitness visuals showed thick plumes of smoke rising near the university, shattered classrooms, and debris scattered across residential zones, highlighting the scale of destruction inflicted on non-military targets. Despite mounting evidence and on-ground testimonies, Pakistan dismissed the allegations as propaganda, a familiar tactic often used to deflect accountability. However, footage verified by revealed damaged homes, injured civilians in hospitals, and widespread destruction across the affected areas, contradicting Islamabad's denial.
پرون د دوشنبه ورځ و 2 بجې وې چې په بازار کې مې شتون لرو که روزګار ته تللی وم هغه د کور د خوا نه زنګ راغلی چې مرمۍ راغللې ولګېدلې دغه شان زخمیان دي او ځان راورسوه کور ته هغه چې زه کور ته راغللم نو زموږ زخمیان د کلي خلکو په همکارۍ سره هغه انتقال شوي وو.
Afghan officials confirmed that dozens were injured with hospitals overwhelmed by casualties.
چې اخرنی ارقام د شپې تر ناوخته پورې چې د مختلفو ولسوالیو نه اسداباد ولایتي روغتون ته زخمیان راتل ټوټل اسداباد ولایتي روغتون ته 88 نفر راغلي دي چې د هغې جملې نه 9 نفر شهیدان لرو او 1 نفر زخمیان دي.
The attack also struck during active class hours at the university, further underscoring the indiscriminate nature of the shelling. Meanwhile, the situation escalated on the other side of the border as well. Clashes between Pakistani forces and the Taliban intensified near Chaman, reportedly killing Pakistani soldiers and forcing civilians to flee. Villages near the border were emptied as residents escaped continuous shelling, reflecting how Pakistan's aggressive military posture is destabilizing both sides of the frontier.
د کال د کلی باچا څخه خبره کوم تقریبا نن دومره درېمه د زموږ کورونه خالي کړي دي او د حالات د خرابېدو د وجې څخه چې بار بار ټکان کېږي زموږ کوچنیان وباسو بیا چې حالات څه نارمل سي بیا کوچنیان راولو چې بیا ټک ټوک شروع سي بیا موږ کوچنیان وباسو نو ځکه چې اوس فلحاله ګرد کلی وتلی.
According to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, the fallout has triggered a severe humanitarian crisis. Over 10,000 people have been displaced across Kunar, Nangarhar and Khost. Healthcare systems are collapsing with at least 19 facilities disrupted, impacting nearly 78,000 people. Critical infrastructure including schools, water systems and rehabilitation centers has been damaged, leaving civilians vulnerable to disease outbreaks and long-term instability. This latest escalation is not an isolated incident. Tensions have been building since February when Pakistan carried out air strikes inside Afghanistan, raising serious concerns about its continued reliance on military aggression rather than diplomacy.
That is always so. Pakistan has always used theatre to escape from its internal problems. So, if Pakistan has basically ramped up its response to its troubles on the borders, it is because A, it wants to divert attention from its internal problems, and which are many, especially on account of this oil crisis. There are massive lines in Pakistan, fuel is practically non-existent and there have been long power cuts, number one. There are problems on the Baluch front as well. There are problems on the Pashtun front as well. What has emboldened Pakistan right now is the following, that they know that given the degree of conflict, the depth of the conflict, the intensity of the conflict that is going on between Iran on one side and the Americans and Israelis on the other, the world will probably not step in to help Afghanistan if they start using air power.
The Chaman crossing, one of the most vital trade corridors between the two nations, now risks becoming another flashpoint in an already volatile region.
Anger is intensifying in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir as locals accuse Islamabad of systematically exploiting their land and natural resources. Protests led by the Joint Awami Action Committee are gaining momentum, with residents warning of a larger resistance if alleged illegal land seizures and mineral extraction continue unchecked. The unrest highlights deepening discontent over governance, rights, and economic marginalization in the region.
For decades, Pakistan has faced allegations of extracting valuable natural resources from Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, often bypassing local ownership and consent. Now that resentment is spilling onto the streets. In Neelam Valley, protests have intensified, led by local groups demanding control over their land, minerals, and economic future. The Joint Awami Action Committee has emerged as the face of this resistance, mobilizing residents against what they describe as systemic exploitation backed by state structures.
ये टर्मलीन आपका है, ये रूबी आपका है, ये अपने जेब में नहीं लाए, ये किसी का बाप का नहीं है, पहला हक आपका है। अगर कोई जबरदस्ती छीनेगा, ये ग्रीन नीला पीला टूरिज्म ये यहाँ बात कर रहे थे, जोते मारेंगे इनको। सीधा कहता हूँ कि अवामी मामलात में ना है, सीधा दो टोक कहता हूँ, मैं अवामी हुकूक की बात करता हूँ। वहाँ जो भी वहाँ अगर कोई अदारा आके काबज होने की कोशिश करेगा, वो पुलिस करे, वो इंतजामिया करे, वो शाह साहब करे, वो मियाँ साहब करे, उनके खिलाफ हम ऐलानिया जंग लड़ेंगे, ऐलानिया जंग।
At the heart of the protest lies a clear demand: ownership. Residents argue that natural wealth in the region belongs exclusively to the local population, not external authorities or political elites. What makes the situation more volatile is the growing perception that economic decisions are being imposed without representation, further widening the trust deficit between the people and the administration.
यहाँ के मिनिस्टर है, उन्होंने क्या किया? मेहरान साहब, जुल्म देखना, आपके सिर्फ उधर प्लाटों पे कब्जे होते हैं, इधर 100 कनाल जगह जो है वह लाट हो जाती, 100 कनाल जगह। ये पीछे निकरू में आबादी के अंदर से, ये इधर से इस साइड ताबड़वाला के अंदर शाह साहब सारा मलकीती रकबे, ये पूरा गांव एक पूरा गांव है। अब लोगों को मुतबादल जगह देने के बजाय लोगों से जगह छीन ली जा रही।
Beyond resource extraction, land ownership has emerged as a flashpoint. Locals alleged large-scale illegal allocation of land to outsiders, often at the cost of indigenous communities. With little compensation or rehabilitation, displacement is fueling anger across the region. Analysts say such developments risk triggering prolonged instability, especially as economic grievances begin to merge with political discontent.
अगर आपके पास वसाइल ना होते तो यहाँ डेवलपमेंट भी होती, या तरक्की भी होती, यहाँ के नुमाइंदे काम भी करते। लेकिन चूंकि ये वसाइल लूटे जा रहे हैं, तो इसलिए यहाँ रोड नहीं बनाई जाती। या रोड बनाएंगे तो इजी एक्सेस है, मेरे जैसा बंदा भी आके वीडियो बनाएगा कि फलाना बंदा चोरी कर रहा है। हम बात ही सेहत, तालीम, रोजगार की कर रहे हैं, हम बात लोगों की भलाई की कर रहे हैं। हमने ये झंडा उठाया हुआ है जो रियासत के लोगों का झंडा है, इस आजाद कश्मीर का झंडा है। हम 4000 मुरब्बा मील के अंदर जिंदा रहने का हक मांग रहे हैं, और इस पे अगर किसी को एतराज है तो उसको को हम रा के भी एजेंट है, अमेरिका के भी है, रियासत की अवाम के भी है, जिसका वो के हम मानने को तैयार। इसके लिए अगर हमें फांसी लगना पड़े तो हम फांसी लगने को तैयार हैं।
The protests are no longer limited to resources. They now reflect a broader crisis of governance. From lack of infrastructure to limited access to healthcare, education and jobs, locals claim systemic neglect is being used to maintain control while preventing scrutiny. With warnings of a larger agitation if demands remain unmet, the situation in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is fast becoming a significant geopolitical and human rights concern.
Separatist sentiment is resurfacing in Pakistan's Sindh province, with renewed calls for an independent Sindhu Desh. Marking the 31st death anniversary of nationalist leader G.M. Syed, large gatherings and protests have highlighted growing discontent. Activists allege systemic economic exploitation, demographic pressure, and human rights violations, raising fresh questions about internal stability and federal control in Pakistan.
These are scenes from Sindh, where pro-independence slogans are once again echoing across the province. The movement traces its ideological roots to G.M. Syed, who first articulated the idea of Sindhu Desh decades ago. On his 31st death anniversary, thousands gathered in Sindh, turning the event into a major political mobilization. Sindh accounts for a significant share of Pakistan's economy, hosting key ports like Karachi and contributing an estimated 30% of national GDP, yet activists argue that local communities see little benefit from this wealth.
साइन 31 मार्च 1973 को सिंध यूनिवर्सिटी जामचोरो में अपने एजाज में मुनक्किद एक तकरीब में सिंधु देश की आज़ादी का तस्वर पेश किया और सिंध और साथ ही तमाम महकूम कौमों को आज़ादी की भरपूर हिमायत की। कौमी आज़ादी या हक़ खुदरादियत हर कौम का इंसानी पैदाइशी और जमहूरी हक है, जिसे अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा के चार्टर में भी तस्लीम किया गया है।
At the shrine of G.M. Syed, the symbolism was striking. Instead of Pakistan's national anthem, participants played the anthem of a proposed Sindhu Desh, signaling a clear assertion of identity. Leaders accused Pakistan's power structure, particularly the military establishment, of engineering demographic and political changes in Sindh. Human rights groups have repeatedly flagged concerns over forced conversions and abductions of minority girls, especially from Hindu communities in Sindh, issues that continue to draw international attention. In London, the issue gained international visibility. An event organized by the Jai Sindh Freedom Movement brought together voices from across Pakistan's marginalized regions, including Baloch and Pashtun activists. Speakers argued that Sindh's integration into Pakistan in 1947 remains contested among nationalist groups and that decades of resource extraction, political centralization and limited provincial autonomy have intensified separatist narratives. Activists note that such cross-regional solidarity among ethnic movements signals a broader pattern of internal dissent.
No independence for regional policy. People call Pakistan a democratic state, but let me be clear, Pakistan is a security state. A security state means policies are not made in Islamabad, but everywhere else, and then handed over down. And for sake of for those or for their own interests. If they must commit genocide against the whole nation, they will do it. This is what a security state means. But we will not remain silent. Our people need us, and in the end, I would say we need equality, justice. We need provinces should have their own control on their own resources. Every ethnicity should have education in their own language. Stop enforced disappearance. Stop extrajudicial killings of Pashtun and Baloch. Give people freedom of speech and expression.
Reports by global watchdogs have repeatedly pointed to restrictions on dissent, enforced disappearances, and curbs on press freedom in Pakistan, issues that activists say are central to their demands. With growing international advocacy and rising domestic unrest, the Sindhu Desh movement is once again emerging as a critical fault line in Pakistan's internal dynamics.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.